helping you with Acorn and RISC OS computing.
Ooh, I found the button. Well, as you can see from the BBC clock, it's hopefully Charles finds that nostalgic. I certainly do. That's the mechanical one. It is time to begin, so I'll drag that away. I'm going to leave this possibly this size. Let me know if you don't like it, just because it's slightly more convenient for me. So thanks for inviting me to speak again. I'm going to try not to speak too quickly, as I know I've seen Vince once has subtitled me on a previous video when I went slightly too quickly in one portion, which I found informative. So the first thing was certainly RISC OS computer shows, because I've been doing RISC OS computer shows for 10 years, and I'll mention this again in a minute, but I didn't know they existed, and I think lots of people don't. So I'm trying to change that a little bit. And given RISC OS North is a new show, I wanted to help with that. So I've been working at that. Then I want to talk a little bit about how you can take something that's more attainable for small independent developers like myself, and how you modernize an 8-bit game and make it sort of retain its soul as an 8-bit thing, but not maybe some of the limitations, like necessarily the low resolution. And then, which is currently still under development, a little look at what I'm doing for RISC OS North, which is based on a dream I had. I do dream quite a lot of video games, oddly enough, for some reason. I don't know why, but I do. Anyway. So yeah, I didn't know these things existed. I saw the ARM Mini online, and I was generally interested in it. I saw Cast Computers producing things, and Acorn before that. I nearly had access to a RISC OS computer once when I was young. My dad nearly bought one, and it was Arthur, not RISC OS. And then at school, we had a RISC OS computer, but none of us were allowed to use because it was only one. It was quite expensive. But I was quite keen on having one. Anyway, I'm concerned really to make sure that over time we don't lose people. I mean, these things are kind of precious, because there's a great energy at these shows, and the club meeting like we're doing now, and the shows of the kind of lifeblood of this community, and it's really important to stop it. So unusually, I've been doing things about RISC OS initially, but not actually on RISC OS, except for this presentation, which is running an RPCMU or EMU. I'm not sure which that is anyway. One of those two. So last Saturday, I got a bit carried away, had 4 cups of coffee and drove for 6 hours up to the wonderful North West Computing Museum, opened by Professor Steve Ferber, as it says there. They've got a great collection, and Andrew Rauncey and I distributed numerous amounts of leaflets around the site. I've got one of them in front of me, but I expect I'm not on camera, so I might wave it at the screen later. In any case, this is a bit of it, and I got them printed. I drove up there, distributed them around, and we invited them to the show, and they're going to be exhibiting at RISC OS North, which should be great. We've got some volunteers who, again, didn't know about RISC OS, didn't know it ran on the Pi. Even they've got a smattering of lovely RISC OS machines around the site, RISC OS 600, 3010, and various other ones. So it was, it was really, really good fun. A great place to go. So I'm going to plug them shamelessly and thank them for their support as well. So I found a video program. What I like to make an advert, which I probably will play to you. I don't know if I should apologize for that, but it is an advert for RISC OS, so maybe that's good. You can either pay £255 or get it for free. So I went for the first option, my budget being extremely limited. But you don't have to create an account. You don't have to subscribe. And I really like that because I don't like subscribing to a bit of software which I then don't own, or having to log in the event I can no longer get access to things that are I think, what I've created, really. So I'll sort of show what this is like. So yeah, you can do multiple video tracks on here. I compose some music for it in the style of initially of a TV theme, because I really like the old TV logos, oddly enough, and then did a voiceover. And because I talked too quickly, I slowed it down by sort of like a reverse PAL speed up. So PAL changes the pitch by a quarter of a tone, 1/24th, or half a semitone. And I slowed it down, and my voice sounds better, deeper, not drastically deeper. That'll be a bit scary, probably. Anyway, there's a comic book effect here to make, add like a bit of like film grain put over the top. So I did various tricks like that to build up a video showcasing, some of the hardware, which I have to say involved cutting pictures of computers, which Vince kindly took out of photographs, and then airbrushing all the fingerprints out so they look decent on the video. So that was something I didn't expect to be doing, frankly, but it had to be done. This is apparently by, I can show you, this is some guy called Buddha Boy who says his video channel is entitled Some Bloke with a Drone in Cheshire. I believe this is the M62. So I actually did put something from Cheshire into the video at this point and then put a flying 3D Lego across it. Again, trying to make it look expensive. And speaking of expensive, when you're making a video, there's a psychological effect. If you run it at 24 frames a second, the same as cinema, it tends to look more expensive. Probably because film is expensive, probably. If you run it at like 50 or 60 frames a second, you have something called the soap opera effect. So like a cheap Spanish soap opera, where they feed the lines through an earpiece. It gives that impression of low cost. So I tend to spend no money where possible, but then try to make things look expensive. I find that generally useful. Yeah, this is like an animation, 56 frames in the style of a TV logo, traced over a logo which Vince had designed, which is like a compass and then the RISC OS logo. And the reason why I did it on chalk was just like sketching out an idea, really. So yeah, we've got to do all this stuff to make the video work, including some bits of foam footage I had of a Southwest show, so I could show what it was like. But why don't I have footage? I grabbed stock footage, basically. So yeah, many pictures, about 2 or 3 hours to draw it. But I like animating, oddly enough. I quite like slow, meditative things, which is weird because I drink coffee, which is anything but meditative. But anyway, ignore the contradiction and just assume it makes sense. So yeah, and I didn't have any footage of BBC Micros. So what I did was I took one of Vince's photographs, changed the color, changed the saturation, and I did something I think you used to do with a rostrum camera, and I panned across the image. I then animated the image, which making it look like it's a video. Animated missile command and a game over script logo, and the eagle eye would spot that nothing rotates. It's obviously a panning across, but it's only 4 seconds, and I'm hoping people don't notice. Or in the BBC Micro community, I'm half expecting to say, but Missile Command doesn't do that, or something, or Pac-Man's Game Over logo doesn't flash. But anyway, I'll find out when I share it. I half expect those kinds of comments. But yeah, these are tools which we've got if we want to use them to try and let people know about RISC OS. I'm also promoting this video at the minute, apparently, and that's garnered about 3,000 views, and now weirdly, I'm picking up subscribers on my YouTube channel. I've got about another 24 or 25, and it's going to go over 100. So these people are clicking on the website, as far as I know. So it should be leading people to it. So the idea of all these things, like leaflets around the museum, for people who are enthusiasts, we should be interested in, I think, RISC OS North and RISC OS itself. And the video, I'm just trying to tell people about it, because I think if people just don't know it's there, which can't be right. Right, so I'm going to probably go away from the emulator now. Yes, before we go to that, for fun, if that is what it is. Yeah, so my YouTube channel is now at 94 subscribers, and it was 70 before I started this. I can see I can't quite reach the top of the window. This always happens. Here we go. Right, and then we got, as I mentioned, a chat with this man with a drone in Cheshire. So if you want to make a video, Pixabay has very permissive rights on it. It's generally, the content's clean, not stolen from anywhere. And that means you can make things look expensive, which is great, and not spend any money, which is even better. Yes, so the TV logo, I'm quite fond of TV logos. Maybe it's just me. I think this animates. This guy's gone and recreated all the BBC, or many of the BBC and ITV logos. Which is sort of fun if you like that sort of thing. I'll just do one more. So never underestimate a bit of nostalgia. Well, hopefully that appeals to you anyway. Yeah, so and briefly down here we've got DaVinci Resolve running. I'm sorry if this is annoying in advance. because it plays the video sound backwards. I'll stop it doing that because obviously it's going to repeat. I didn't know that. If you look carefully, you'll see the zoom position change. So I've got the image and I'm moving it. I won't do that too much because it probably drive everybody mad. But yeah, essentially you've got all your different channels here, including an alpha channel. So yeah, all this stuff used to cost a fortune years ago when the BBC was doing it with their noddy room, which I believe is a camera room which used to point at the logos. But yeah, it's a great little tool if you want to use it too.
Yes, there was quite a few of them. It panned and tilted and went around the place.
Yes, indeed. As I didn't have a video for this part, it really, helped to me to fake one. Although if I play the video, people will indulge me. And you can say don't play the video, Tony, if you want to. I don't mind. I'll just do that now. The ARM processor at the heart of your phone is descended from the CPU designed by Acorn and used in their RISC OS computers. It lives on in the Raspberry Pi and other contemporary ARM single-board computers. Come and see the past, present, and future of RISC OS on March the 29th at the Village Hotel in Warrington. Check our website, riscosnorth.uk, for exhibitors and further updates. Thank you for watching. So something not too bad, it looks semi-credible, hopefully. Hopefully you could hear that because I did share the audio. So moving away from promotion, you might be relieved to hear, but I would say do come to RISC OS North. I feel I ought to. 8-bit games, which I'm quite a fond of the form factor because I personally prefer to play video games casually. So I like Vince Hudd's Escape from X-Zero, for example, and Geography Movers, various games that he's done. These games have kind of turned into this and become very sort of like hyper realistic, and I think there's something to be said for style. Although you could say Android Attack still looks kind of a bit surreal, a bit like a cartoon or whatever. What has been happening is that when indie games started to get kind of like popular, because of a lack of money and time, it headed towards minimalism. Also, a lot of indie programmers maybe struggle with graphics, as to what level they can do. And if you use stock material, it can look very hodgepodge. Sophia, my daughter, who's studying this field, mentions to me, she guides me to mention that you've got to have a coherent look to things. Of course, if everything's third party, it looks non-coherent. So, things tend towards a more minimalist thing. And obviously it takes a lot of time to do level design, etc. So yeah, also less is more is a general truth. Everything that's made, even if it's like a fine art painting, is not reality. It doesn't look anything like reality. Some cultures in the world where perhaps art isn't really a thing, and perhaps they live a more in harmony with nature kind of life. You show them a picture of a horse, and they'll say, "That's not a horse. I can't walk around it." So these things are always abstract, and in many ways, if you keep things simple, it improves the quality of them. Some of these AAA games are so kind of distracting for me and so involved with so much going on that I find them far less engaging personally. But it is to each their own. Some people love them and spend lots of money on them. But there is, I think, scope for alternative. And similar to RISC OS, where I'm developing, I'm using BBC Basic mostly. it's important to have limitations to create. If you can create absolutely anything, then you tend to find that people create virtually nothing because they have so many options they can't really decide or limit it to any one thing. That's all a good excuse. You see, I've got excuses for what I do. It's not because I can't. It's mainly because of time, to be honest with you. But that's what I say. Anyway, example, of course, of Pac-Mania. This obviously came from the very flat, two-dimensional Pac-Man, and they've stylized it. This doesn't, again, it's a limitation. It's still fundamentally at its heart the same as an 8-bit game, really, just with slightly better graphics. I suppose I could use some 8-bit game to just mean any sort of like a game with a relatively simple premise and implementation at its heart. Not like, full physics, artificial intelligence, and everything else. One thing that's important is music for some of these projects. So my daughter is massively into this game, and this is huge. This was written by one person originally just for Linux and Windows, and then it got ported to all the different game consoles and various other things. Released in 2015, but looked like it could have come out in 1985. The main difference really with it is the soundtrack is very, very good. I've actually seen a video in Japan, an orchestra playing the music from the game. It's quite a good composer, this guy. Probably not so strong in the programming. I think he used a game engine originally for a lot of the work, and he's only producing things very, very slowly. But yeah, it's all pixel art.
Audio.
Sorry?
Lost your audio then, but you're back.
Oh, good. Just a bit of glitch. I'll just repeat. So I heard the music was obviously really important. There's I've seen an orchestra in Japan playing the theme from this game. He's a very strong musician, but maybe not such a strong coder because a lot of this was done with the game engine. And, he's very slow at producing things. But yeah, his music is excellent. And actually his design is excellent as well. But his graphics are very, sort of 8-bit really. But yeah, massively successful, hugely successful game, and popular with young people, and not really not AAA at all. I think my games might be Triple D or Triple E. I'm not quite sure. Hopefully not Triple F. Anyway, Forager is another one. I thought I should show. Undertale's not unique. There's quite a few of these. I think this game was written by somebody in Argentina, and again, I think the game plays zoomed in. Very pixelated. Note as well that both the last game and this game were world games or RPGs, and both of them had a rather peculiar view of 3D, which is called 2.5D, I believe. The trees, if you saw them in real life from the sides, would be pointing diagonally across, towards the ground. And this is just done as a simplification. I've used it in 2 games, Lightgate and Amazing. Of course, another option for this is isometric 3D, which is what the Pac-Mania game was done in. This is one of mine. This is on bbcmicro.co.uk and probably other collections as well. It's a BBC Basic game, and it's very pixelated. The gimmick here is that you've got to get rid of the aliens before the time bomb goes off. So when I upscaled this, when there was a Christmas market, I changed it to a vertical scroller. The bullets are the same. I noticed they look the same. The graphics, I kept the basic look of lights against a shaded background, but basically upscaled the look of it. I also put a soundtrack in it, so it kept it in a similar scope, but essentially it's still, very much like maybe a 16-bit game or 32-bit on the Archimedes, but essentially not AAA, not in that space. Other alterations I made was putting formation flying in the game, which wrote my own animation language. So I included the BBC Micro game in the download. So if anyone ever does buy or download that, you'll find that in there with my probably questionable code from when I was 15. Hopefully less questionable code now with the animation language in there, which then lets these things do figure of 8 flying, etc. So a bit more riffing on this stuff. So here we have a Berserk clone from the TRS-80. BBC might have various descendants of this game as well. And there was I think Michael Foote did a port that ran a Cybertron mission on the RISC OS. So this character is a stickman. I reimagined that. Again, I found some stock footage to help me if I can look for it. One of these ones. There we go. Okay, that's not that one. Maybe I close something extra. Oh, here we are. Flash free files. There we are. Running Man. I always have too many browser tabs open. I thought I got myself organized. This guy looks like he's out of the ReadyBrack adverts. Makes me think of that. And what I did is I used FFmpeg to snap frames out at an interval to create a loop, and then using layers, I recolored it and created a new blur that was a little less intrusive on the image. Basically, I should also mention, I think the last time I was speaking to you, that I made a game based on Cylon Attack with 3D ships who needed 3D glasses to see, which I released at the London show, and that's kind of based on Cylon Attack, so I might show that later. But yeah, so it's how you can make things work. And still keep the spirit of these things. My main inspiration was probably Android Attack on this game. There has a number of other gimmicks in it which aren't present, including a growing sort of like organism which you have to destroy, which definitely isn't an Android Attack or Berserk. Again, in terms of being creative, you can take something and you can add to it and create fusions. And perhaps when we talk about Morphix, I have some ideas for fusions there. I'd caveat when we get to that because I haven't finished it yet, that it may change before I get to the show because something about the concepts might not work. But as I imagine it, it should work. So I think that premise should seem reasonable. I don't know how many video games I've made now. It might be 70. So I kind of ended up having, after numerous failures at various points, sort of have more sense of what works. Hopefully. In any case, this particular one here is Star Maze, which I always liked but never got very far on when I was young. And Star Mind is my reimagining of that, where I made this and I have it in front of me, this thing in foam board, which rotates, and it's first person perspective. So yeah, that but still, when people were reviewing it online, people did mention this is basically an 8-bit game on videos and forums and things. So it's still the spirit of it is this slightly surreal, reduced version of reality that's designed to fit in 32K of memory. So doing music, I've got my terrible chair which is falling apart and I ought to do something about before I injure myself. Got my collection of synthesizers which I have great fun with, which make very sort of chiptune type sounds. This poor little Casio here is very unwell. It doesn't so much make useful sounds as strange ones at the minute, so I have to do something about that. Milky Tracker is a tracking option because back in the day, and still today, there is a whole genre of music around producing so-called chip tunes, which are sequenced music tunes that either play samples or use a sound chip. There's even a guy doing chart music occasionally who makes music using a Commodore 64 linked up to things like Milky Tracker. Or if you can't play or don't want to, then royalty-free music is available, some of which can be really quite good. There's vast amounts of material. I guess that's why the music industry struggles so much. There's just so much of it available now compared to what it was. But that said, synthesizers sales are going up as these things cost a lot less than they used to. Like 30 years ago, are much more accessible to people. I suppose, yeah, okay. So in terms of doing coding it, you don't. I love doing assembler, but these days computers are so quick comparatively, and as most of a video game is a visual and music and the puzzle design and things like that, and not as much of it as the actual program code. You've got the development kit that I sell, which comes with a number of titles, and I'm doing an update. I'm going to try and get it done for RISC OS North. It's quite a long way done and in progress. As an alternative to that, there is Pygame, which obviously provides another way in if people like programming in Python, whereas this is BBC Basic at the moment. And I've used the App Game Kit to take RISC OS games and be able to run them on other platforms. This is because the App Game Kit has a basic language inside of it that was originally called Dark Basic. And so to translate from BBC Basic to this is easy. And all of these games have a shim layer that acts as a translator inside between my dialect in the game kit, such as a proc put sprite or draw level or play MP3, and actually then you can replace that shim layer, that adapter layer, and make it run pretty much the same code on other platforms. So you can write on RISC OS and run elsewhere if you want to. Afterwards I'll probably run the Moonbase attack from the emulator, since I was talking about it last time, at least as far as I can tell I was. The trouble with being 51 is I can't always remember what the last presentation I did was or what I talked about. I get them a bit jumbled up, but I'm pretty sure that's what I talk about. Okay, so I dream video games a lot. Some of them are quite interesting. One I had, which I'm going to put into development at some point, is a game where you could play after the Earth has been invaded by aliens. You could play as either a rebel trying to overthrow the aliens or rise up the ranks. It was called Are You Ready Human? And the graphics in my dream were rubbish, but the game concept was quite good. This one, the graphics in my dream were better. Basically, I had the idea for having these little like jelly characters, something a bit like him or her over there, which you'd have to group together to finish the game, to get them to go past sliding blocks or past doors and things. I conceived it as an isometric 3D game with color transformation. So I thought, well, I don't really like the idea of grouping things by color. I like the idea you could change the color of the characters. So this blue character could become red or green. And I wanted to make it isometric because I hadn't done one for 10 years. When I did one 10 years ago, I did get some things wrong. I thought it would be novel to have an isometric game with these kind of blocks, these fruits and things on it, and these little bridges you can assemble here by pushing these blocks together. So it'd be a little bit like mop tops, where you have to get them to the exit, and they can obviously fall through holes to fall out of the maze. But I wanted to have sliding blocks because one game I played about 20 years ago that I really liked, which I can't remember the name of, was basically a game where you had to slide matching blocks together and they annihilated till you cleared the grid. That's quite fun. So you slide matching pairs together or whatever and be able to clear the way. It seems like a good idea, I think. It should be fun. But I may have to revise that in the event it turns out not to be fun. Anyway, I think it works. That's an idea. So I resketched what I had imagined or conceived of concept. So I've left it undeveloped for several years. I tend to have multiple designs. I've got a game with conceived of with a PI, a private investigator, where you go off and solve cases basically, and you could maybe sort of fight people on the street and search for objects in rooms, opening drawers, and yes, I've sketched out some of the mysteries and puzzles, and I have that in my back pocket to do at some point in the future, possibly next year. It depends again on if I've got enough material for it or if I've got enough time, because it's not normal really to do 2 video games a year, but because I'm running in my development kit, I have a common platform, so I don't have to reinvent the code. I only have to reinvent the presentation. In this game, for example, inside it's 2-dimensional still, and it's using the same code that I've used in multiple games, starting with Escape from the Arcade. I think on my website, if I were to bring it up, if I bring up my website rather than the YouTube channel, on this one, the same mechanisms are running in Lightgate Wizard Lore, because you can see, if you look carefully, it's a sideways presentation. Lightgate has this 2.5D maze. So the engine basically has objects that run, and then you have blocking objects or things that be transformed, like a key to open a door, etc. So the same mechanism is running in Amazing, which looks suspiciously similar to Lightgate, because it's an ancestor of Lightgate and also the game that I'm writing, believe it or not. Haunted Tower Hotel, again, suspiciously similar. Yeah, with things that are pulled out of a text map. So yeah, I tend to reuse things a lot, and that way I can do a couple a year. Because I've used too much cheese or whatever it is I do, I have all these crazy ideas, some of which are rubbish, just silly, and I should never write them, and some of which might make sense or appear to make sense. Hopefully this one does. Plausibly makes sense. So isometric view, if you're probably many more familiar than I am, given I actually didn't get it right the first time I tried it, take 30-degree angle, and then the idea is that wherever your object is on this screen, it will be the same size, but it will look like it's three-dimensional. You're looking down at an angle, and yeah, so you calculate it. So this time I've made sure that I got it right, and which is good. Now, when I go through and do graphics, I evolve them over time. And same with implementations and concepts. I think I've written some of them a couple of times because I started writing it and it just didn't work out that well. So I basically, started again, essentially, and started rewriting it. And sometimes I've just done many iterations of the same game. 3D Pingo that we saw earlier, which you wouldn't have noticed necessarily. If I go in here, this game I've written about 6 times now. This is the 6th version of it, and there is on my channel the BBC Micro version of that one somewhere, probably. A playthrough of it, which takes all of 5 minutes to play. When I stuck it on my website, I didn't have an instruction screen on it, so when it was taken from my website, there it is. That's the game that 3D Pingo is based on. That's about the 2nd version, the 3rd design. It's surreal. You have to eat the desserts and then nip through the vortex. Again, very surreal game. I played it in the Museum of Computing with Brian, and that was our conclusion. Just a bit strange. Some of my games aren't, though. They're sensible, but some of them do go a bit left field. Yeah, these things are just a bit frightening looking, frankly. So I crossed them out. This one didn't maybe look slightly less frightening, but there's no consistency with the look of the game. So I created this thing, which I optimistically called a voxel. Now that's the term for a pixel in 3-dimensional space. So when you have a 3D game, they're voxels, not pixels in it. Oh yeah, this thing I thought was better looking. I have different expressions apparently. I was looking mildly confused. That one looks slightly cross. Anyway, generally you've got to have a consistent theme and you've got to keep it simple, because if you start to make it non-simple, it can get confused. So there's, and again, it comes down to what level of ability that I've got to create these things, or time. I think if I have more time, I can do more, but then I won't ever finish it. So this is taken as a screen grab from where I've got to, which is rendering the level. I should have these animating quite soon, and filling in these horrible holes. So principally, the idea is you get rid of these sort of fruits here. You'd have to cover up a hole so it didn't fall down it. The idea I want to have it so you can just click on the block and it will move in a given direction. I'll see if that works. I considered having a character wandering around pushing things, but I don't know if that makes it too complicated. You have to get into a maxing exit, and off screen you can't see it, is a color transformation block which changes these to yellow. So again, this will all revise and refine, because I will have to adjust it based on how discoverable, how playable it is, and how forgiving it is. when I did the Yorkshire Games Festival a while back, and 5-year-olds and 3-year-olds, which vastly outperformed the 30-year-olds in solving the puzzles in mop tops at the speed, and never having used a mouse before in some cases, picked that up almost instantly. They basically it was obvious that I needed to make sure the early levels were sufficiently forgiving. They coped well, but that's some feedback that I had of several hundred people playing my games on that day, which is quite exhausting, but quite good fun as well. Over at the Museum for Science and Video, I think it is over in Bradford, some similar name to that. So, yeah, I have to drop the color depth. I want to make it run on the Pi 2. Of course, Raspberry Pi 2 is 10 years old now, but I don't see the point necessarily in not supporting them, because the people out there using them, they work. So people like using much older hardware, RISC OS, and it all works fine. But I have to put a limit somewhere. Some of my games run on the Raspberry Pi 1. I think one ran on A9 Home. I think 2 run on the Ionics. I haven't tried to go before that, though. Yeah, the idea is you have bridges you can push together to make climb over holes, so you've got some extra dimensionality to it. Like you could in mop tops, you could then fill gaps. And bombs I thought would be fun to blow holes in walls. So you maybe slide 2 half bomb blocks together and then you can blow things up. Apparently that's fun. I don't know. Another thing was mentioned to me in mop tops that people used to like killing all the mop tops, which didn't seem very kind, but apparently they did. I don't know if I'd have that as a feature here, but I might make it so you only have to save one and none left on screen. I suppose, be fun either way, really. I'm putting amazing into it. I can't remember why. There's probably a reason for it. It has the right kind of tooling in it for the objects and the blocks. I had fun as ever trying to get this to render the isometric display, because the way explain how it works, you draw from the back, and you have to draw these objects. So I have to have slots to fill them in based on positions, so that it renders them behind walls if necessary. I have to draw the floor first, and then there's an in-betweening so it doesn't just, it can actually move across the blocks. You have to calculate the remainder, dividing it down by the grid, so that it can, and then you have to calculate the angles and multiply it up so the characters move smoothly across the positions. And the other thing is, technically, to explain, these with Scuba Hunter, which I'll very briefly bring up, so I make sure the talk is long enough. Here we go. Right. Down here, Scuba Hunter. This is Repton basically underwater. You've got blocks, boulders that fall on you in this. And the way I've done that is I reflect, though the boulders move smoothly, I reflect the animated object back into the map. So if you saw it in like mode 7 or on some 8-bit system, you see it jerkily move. So internally, that's what's happening. And that's what's happening here, should happen here. Got to write that bit, so that the blocks can collide with each other and have solidity. Otherwise, you have a problem where you got, I think, is it n times n, whatever it is. You've got to check all the objects against every other object, or you have to make a clever sort of like subdivision to say, for this position, check for nearby objects, and then push them into a table, what you call a hash table. So I'm trying to make it simple as I can, because that makes it quicker. But there's always a bit of mathematics, arithmetic, whatever, behind all this stuff to make it work. Although I had solved this before, I say solve it loosely, because Legends of Magic is not 30 degrees, it's 45 degrees. Yeah, there's a number of problems. So I wrote this game 10 years ago and it still sells. I see, I still sell it on compilations, and I see downloads happening for it, which is nice. So Sophia, who's studying graphics art design, points out what I got wrong. So the first thing was I decided to save time. I'd make everything into ruins. So these are piles of stones, literally. And think this is Cleopatra. So she says that it wasn't a good idea to combine something which is essentially a photograph with graphics which are drawn. So that's one problem. I've got away from that. Now I try and make sure things are consistent. These trees also, I suspect, are a photograph. this chap's walking cycle is not great. Robotic would be kind. However, it's fun. Children. I remember seeing one of my young customers at 9 years old playing it quite enthusiastically for several hours. Didn't care. So again, this is the 8-bit effect, the sort of limitation effect based on having a zero budget and very, very limited time. I wrote this in 6 months. Other thing about this, which is maybe a bit unfortunate, an old mate of mine from university was called Kim Yarny, and he was impressed with my choice of name and wrote to me about it, since I'm connected with him on LinkedIn. But there you go. I didn't ask permission, but he wasn't offended at being cast as the evil wizard. I just loved his name. I thought it was a great name for an antagonist. Now, I think before I go to the very end, if it's okay, what I'm going to do, because it only goes to Q&A slide, so rather than going to Q&A, I'm going to escape this presentation program. Tell me if it's too loud as well, because I occasionally am loud, and I apologize about that. But this might work. I don't know what version's on here or how fast it will go. I've got a new computer, so it's running a lot faster on my terrible laptop. But this is my isometric 3D game, so I 3D glasses at the ready. Oh, nothing else. Turn that down a little bit because I can't talk this way. I think I won't play it in 3D at the moment because I'm sure I'm going to make everyone feel a bit peculiar. So we'll go to level 7 so I can die quickly. So this is basically Cylon Attack, by any other name. Because you can't zoom into the screen. You've also got the Elite Radar on the top, which has power-ups. I can see it's still struggling to run RPCMU, but I should be able to find... It's still struggling a little bit. I'm running far too many things on my computer, but that's quite normal. There we are. Power-up. So I have rapid fire, sort of. There we go. Yeah, the idea is you're in lower orbits. It's far too long for me to succeed on this. These are made out of bent bits of plastic, by the way. If I just try to die, which is probably a good idea, very quickly. I should have died now. There we are. There's some sad piano music, which you can't hear. You've also got a moon landing in air drying clay. Again, this is kind of an 8-bit game. This is the last game that I did, so very quickly just try to land on the moon. That shouldn't take very long, but it is running a bit slow. Yeah, there we are. Try and solve that. It shouldn't take me long to finish this level. Especially as it's playing about half speed, 3/4 speed. There we go. So first level should be relatively easy, that's the theory. It's got other powers as well. If I've got a little bit further, right, I've got 2 more ships on the way, 3 more ships on the radar, and I'll just land on the moon, which I have to point out is made up air drying clay. That's about A4 in size. Right, well, so I'll just land on the moon. I've got 1 more to go. So I think now it should go and do a moon landing. So this is made of air drying clay and a small amount of plasticine. I used warding files and various things. This is my attempt at doing like a traditional docking station maneuver. This is a bit of plastic, which is the space station, is actually a bit of packing material. My daughter's Heelys, those are like roller skates, basically. So if I can just try and land on it. I'll try. Oh, I've managed to crash into the side of it. That's typical demo devil there. Anyway, this is made of, I won't do any more, but this is actually made of a silicon gun nozzle, that particular spaceship, with bits of plastic stuck on it and painted. So various bits of junk. In any case, that's about 45 minutes. I feel it's nice for a presentation. Are there any questions? I don't know if I can see the chat anymore because I don't know how to use this thing. And I think it's, yeah, I've got to press OK, and then I can see the chat. Don't dare to open this eye. Ooh, that's very cryptic, Vince. Not as much a question as a statement. Anyway, are there any questions? I'll stop sharing now. There we go. Silence. I mean, there's no questions. Either stunned silence, I've sent you all to sleep, which is entirely possible. I should probably start sharing my screen again and put the BBC clock back on again. Anyway.
No, definitely not asleep.
Oh, good, good. Nothing wrong being asleep. It's good for you. I don't do it enough. I'm trying to learn how to do it.
I was awake at 4 this morning. I've no idea why. I know.
That happens to me. I just resolutely stay there until eventually I fall asleep again.
Your computer's obviously, your new computer is obviously a lot more powerful than mine is. So, because you're running that video editing software, whatever it's called, I can't remember.
DaVinci Resolve.
DaVinci Resolve, yeah. I looked at it, but my computer's nowhere near good enough at the moment. It's 10 years old, my desktop machine. So
I bought a Nook. If you know Nook, it's like a little laptop in a box about 6 inches, if it's that square. So it's quite tiny. And, you know, I decided I wasn't happy with modern laptops. So yeah, my old laptop is very temperamental. I'm having to repair it repeatedly now. I'm a very unhappy computer. So I got myself a so-called next unit computing thing, one of the Intel ones.
Okay.
But it's like the Raspberry Pi kind of put me onto this. They're small computers, which you know, I can fit it in the palm of my hand and lose it if I took it anywhere, because I probably would. There you go. That's what I've been up to. RISC OS North promotion, trying to make sense of what I do, and trying to finish a game in how many days is it to the show? 24 days.
Oh dear.
For the Wakefield show, I was up at 4 in the morning for 3 days running, trying to finish it. And I finished 2 hours before the show started, which is not a good idea. I don't want to do it again. But there you go. The theory is it won't happen this time.
Those, the 3D games, is it the red-green glasses?
Yeah, that's right. So you can watch the video about 3 minutes in. Yeah, 3 minutes in. Well, you could try it. I could share my screen again and you watch video.
I'm not sure I can find them. They're over there somewhere.
Oh, I know the feeling.
Under one of those boxes.
I bought a whole load of Amazon and gave them away with the games, and like a box of the show, because they're okay. And if you looked at 3D fractals, anaglyph fractals, they're amazing. You'll see those. They're like a little 3D shape, like a snowflake or something, but in 3 dimensions. So if you've got good stereoscopic vision, they look really great with those glasses on. The way I did that was, I mentioned the last talk, was by sliding my little phone camera along, and then I had to wear magnifiers and look where there was a little mark on the screen and point it at the same point on the object. It's very high tech. And then I made everything out of junk, basically. I'll say I've got one of this was from Star Mine. It's a bit of foam board I made in about half an hour. Yeah, it's a little spinny thing. So it looks expensive, but it's cost about 10p. There we go. It's like most of my stuff. The idea.
A piece of production.
Absolutely. Or it would be maybe BBC Special Effects Department. So I'm being a bit unkind because they did some fun things. My little leaflets I've made was just scattered everywhere now in the where was it? Wherever it's called, Northwest Computing Museum. That's what it's called.
The show. I haven't seen that before.
No, that's what I did it for London as well, to try to to entice people, basically. So I'm trying hard to help, but contribute, because people do lots of work, and I'm just doing my little bit where I can.
How do you show your video? It doesn't, as far as I can see it, It can't play it on the Irish or thing.
Well, if it's MPEG 2, it would run just fine because they've got the video demos there. So I don't know if there's a YouTube support. If there isn't, as I say, it will run fine as an MPEG 2 video, and converting it is not hard to do. I'm happy to make things available. I probably should really. That's a good suggestion. I was testing the website out, which I was helping out a little bit with on RISC OS on my little home network. I'm trying to make it look good. Anyway, there you go. Vince, are you still there, Vince?
I am.
Can you? Sorry, maybe because I'm being massively sleep deprived this week for some reason. I don't know why. What did you mean?
Oh, when you mentioned the Northwest Computer Museum earlier in your talk, I just spotted. I hadn't spotted it before, but the way it's written reminded me of a scene from the first episode of The Walking Dead, where there's some text written on some doors. Someone's written on the doors, "Don't open, dead inside." But because of the split in the door,
Right.
your instinct is to read it as "Don't dead, open inside."
Yeah, it does read weirdly, doesn't it? Because of how it's constructed. So I paused for a minute, saying North Museum.
Yeah.
But yes.
Yeah, that's why I put in brackets. If you know, you know.
No, I did. Now I know what you mean. So I should probably go and watch. But was it Andrew put me on to watching something on Netflix, an animation of some type or other called Witcher, which I thought was quite. I need something not too mentally challenging for me after driving on Saturday. Because that was more driving than I probably should do.
Going back to the talk though, with Morphix, are you far enough into it that you can show any of it in play, or
not much than what I've displayed there. So basically, when I've got the rendering going, the common engine inside means all I have to do is to configure the rules in the object animation code. And then the levels are kind of easy. I think some of those levels. I've done like in a day most of the levels. I know you say you always need more levels, so I always want to add more. But no, basically I got it to render, which is a bit of a pain. And as I say, I would expect this week to have it up and running, but I didn't manage to get it done for today, unfortunately. No, it doesn't like RPCMU at the minute, or RPCMU doesn't like it either. So I have to do something about it. But it will be there, but I'm not going to be up all night doing it this time because I'm going to plan, theoretically. I know you've been rather busy, Vince. I know you haven't had time to do it.
Yes, I've done almost nothing programming-wise because I've just been absolutely inundated with work lately. So
it's good, though.
Yeah. But it does mean that I'm not going to get much done for Wakefield. Wakefield, North, RISC OS North. I mean, I'm trying, but whether I'll actually achieve anything, I don't know.
It's difficult. I mean, this thing here is, it's like I have if I go over threshold, I find suddenly everything just falls into place, and you're fine.
Yeah,
it's going over the threshold. So I know exactly what you mean. But you're more sensible than me. I sometimes just don't sleep, which is just ridiculous.
With me, it's a case of quite often I can't sleep, which is a different problem. But I do try. I make a point of just going to bed, even if I'm not tired. I'm still in bed. At least I'm relaxed. I'm just laying there.
I'm learning to do this. It's necessary to do that to survive, I find, apparently.
Well, the best chance I've got getting something done, though, is I'm going to go on holiday for a week in the run-up to the show. So I take something that I can develop on with me, then I can alternate between a day out walking and a day sat in front of the computer for that week. Might be a bit too late on top of the show, but we'll see. What I might try and do is get some more levels designed for Escape from Xeria, so at least I can enhance that to some extent.
Yeah, I've got as far as level 54, I think, and I think it got rather hard. But I'm going to have to. It's because of your monsters ghosts turning around and coming back at you, which makes it more challenging. I was able to make progress. I think I might have got 55. Yeah, difficult, but fun, really. I have played level 80 since you asked me to test it for you.
Level
80.
Oh, right, yes, yeah.
But
For a second, I thought you said 86. I thought, hang on, there's only 80 levels.
at the moment, if you add some more, there'll be more.
Yes.
And you could sell a level pack then. You could say, but you can now have a level pack.
Well, the reason I'm doing it is because this year, technically, Escape from Xeria is 40 years old. So, yeah, the very first version was written on paper in 1985. So I might try and do something to celebrate that. So I don't know what yet, but that's why I want to add more levels to it, just enhance it in some way.
You could do an anniversary edition, couldn't you? With like you could just replace some levels in there.
Yeah,
have different ones at the beginning or whatever.
Yeah, but yeah, it's kind of 3.5 weeks to go, So
is it that short? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't want to hear that really, but it is 3.5 weeks to go. Yeah. Okay. 4 o'clock in the morning. Maybe I'll have to do that. I don't want to do that again. That was very painful, to be honest with you. But yeah. But you did 4 o'clock in the morning finish, didn't you, at the fireside chat?
Yes, we sometimes sort of. It's the same with the WROCC meetings. Sometimes a few of us stay on after the meeting and we sort of finish at that sort of time. It doesn't leave me in a good state the next day, though.
No, I wouldn't think so. I mean, so I used to. Well, years ago, I used to stay up ridiculous hours and then go to bed when you're supposed to be getting up. I'm trying not to do that now.
Yeah, I used to do the same.
It goes with the territory, doesn't it? Really, having fun, you don't want to stop. What's the point?
Well, that's it. I mean, back then, when I was quite a bit younger, then you could do it sort of effortlessly. But these days, it really, really takes it out of me.
Yeah, I've stopped trying. So at one point, I was doing some research stuff and for work, and it was like I had coffee at 11 o'clock at night or something. Well, I was just sort of put away to solve a problem for a couple of weeks, and it was it's like I should not do this. I think on my annual review, I started a good work-life balance, and I managed to really. Are you sure? Yeah, it's best as it was. Anyway. So yeah, I would like to attend this fireside chats one day. When Sophia goes to university next year, I think she goes to Montfort by the look of it. Then I will have a bit more time.
Well, at least those are on a Saturday evening, so the next day is a Sunday. So it's a reasonably safe day to stay up late. For most people.
That's right.
It's the WROCC ones which are a problem because they're on a Monday. So
yeah, but
so going to bed at 4 o'clock in the morning and then getting up a few hours later to go to clients and do some work is not good.
It might have some interesting effects on the bookkeeping there.
Yeah. Well, the company I work with on a Tuesday, they know I do it, and I sort of said to them sometimes I might come in a bit later that Tuesday.
Right, that's good. You got an understanding with them.
Yeah, they're a good company.
That's what I like to hear, really. Yeah, people shouldn't do things by the book. You got to do things. Well, obviously, you're a bookkeeper, but do things by.
Yeah, I do have to do things by the book. Yeah,
unfortunately, you do. But yeah, it's good to have some flexibility. That's just good to hear, really. So yeah, as I say, I'm going to keep doing my 2 games a year, really. But I would like to do a bit more low-level stuff as well. With this class,
Depending on at what stage you get it ready, it's always worth sending the game to me to try out and see if I can squeeze some time in to add some levels for you.
Thanks.
Whether I'll be able to is another matter, but I can at least have a look and see if I can squeeze something.
Thank you. That's great.
Because to be fair, designing levels is something I actually enjoy doing.
Well, as I say, I like your level designs. I think, as I say, seriously, I think they're very good. And that's what I find Escape from Xeria, because you're enjoying it. You know, it's something that you have an affinity for. It should be amenable to that. It's a pretty simple text file again. I haven't got to get too creative with my characters because I haven't got too many objects. That'd be a limitation of that design. What we're going to use now, I don't know, a question mark, a $. What was that again? I can't remember. Anyway, it generally sort of works. Not too many objects.
Darren, yes. I've got a general question. You were showing a lot of it using tonight with RISC PC email.
Yes.
Which version of it were you in, the 3.7 or the?
So the reason why I did that is it makes it very easy for me to share and flip between things today. So it's pragmatic. I do all my development on the Raspberry Pis or related systems. What version on earth is it? Not 0.93, this one. I found 0.94 had some glitches on it. And it's RISC OS Direct, I think. There you are.
That'll be the 5.28 or whatever it is, yeah.
Yeah, 5.27 that one. But yeah, it's because that one was stable. I know after that there was a glitch I mentioned where you couldn't full screen and run any video games on it. I'm hoping they might have sorted that out. I know the one sold by RISC OS Open works fine because people have bought that and bought video games and run them. But yeah, it's just a pragmatic solution. So I can flip between these different things and hopefully make it interesting.
They seem to run fine on. I think I'm probably going to get more into games. I haven't been doing much games. I've been too busy doing things like shows and what have you. But so I've been looking at. I've got a load of old software that might be able to run on. Games might run on RISC PC. I don't know. I might have to have a play. But
Well, they should
I
work.
think yours do. But
because it's 26-bit CPU. Something that interests me is the ARM64 stuff. I don't know. That's something I want to read more into, really. But yeah, no, honestly, it's very good for the mind. Video games help your hand-eye coordination and also help with avoiding cognitive decline, which is quite an important thing for all of us, really. As I say, I think I remember which presentation I gave last time. What year is it? I've got my years confused before. It's funding in my 50s.
Who are you again?
I don't know. Forgot. Where are we? What's going on?
I can think of a certain American president that might be in need of some of that.
Which one? There's more than one to choose from.
No,
It's a very broad criteria you've given me.
most of them, from what I've seen.
Yes, indeed. Oh dear. Quite frightening, really. We probably shouldn't think of that. We have to think of your utopian future, Ruth, which you're currently embodied within.
I just keep myself busy digging an Anderson shelter out in my back garden at the moment. So.
That's a good idea. Yeah, I think. Is that called prepping?
I almost bought a nuclear bunker once.
Did you? Or just almost?
Yeah, no, it's about 6 or 7 years ago, a couple of years before COVID. I had enough money in the bank, and I saw one for sale up in the Cotswolds, and just about the amount of money I had in the bank. In the end, because I've had a long-running joke on Riscosity that this is the Riscosity bunker.
Yes.
Which is on the 7th floor of a tower block. So I thought it'd be nice. At the time, I thought that'd be quite funny if I actually did own a bunker. But in the end, I decided not to, and I'm glad I didn't, because I then needed the money a couple of years later when I sort of ran out of work.
Yeah, it's always good to have a buffer, really. The bunker is not you want to end up in there, staying in that one. And really be a bunker.
But the point is, I did nearly end up buying one.
That's an interesting sort of pub conversation point.
I think it was about 12 grand. It wasn't expensive.
I wonder what the appreciation is on that.
Yeah.
Should go and search for it now. Yeah.
Problem is, I didn't take any notes about where it was at the time, so I've got no way of finding it again.
And also, in terms of its actual physical size, you didn't go to it, presumably inspect the property.
No, but just because I saw it online, and it did give the dimensions. It's probably about the size of half of this flat. So the width of this room and the length from the room and plus the kitchen behind me.
Okay. So that's not bad value in terms of physical size. But I get probably lacks amenities, I should think. I mean, all right for storage for...
Yeah, it was very basic. Getting furniture in there would be a problem because there's just ladder access one end.
Yes. And there are probably other facilities missing as well, I should imagine.
Yeah.
This is all of them, basically.
But yeah, I wouldn't have wanted it to live in or anything, but it would have just been a nice joke.
It's cool, as you say. You actually could put a picture of it on there and say, "This is the Riscosity.
This is the actual Riscosity bunker." Yeah,
that's it. And put a sticker on it and stuff. Yeah.
And this year it might be useful.
Yes. Indeed. Oh my goodness. Anyway, we can happily live in our computers for a bit, so we're relatively safe from all the madness that's going on in the world.
So thanks for bringing up this topic, Ruth.
Sorry.
No, it's topical. It's topical, really. It's a topical conversation based on what's going on in the world. Yes, I think I've done one twice. When was our last day I talked to Wakefield? I think it was September. I'm not no. So I'm becoming a regular now. I think.
Soon tell, yeah.
Checking the history. No electrical, plumbing, and flush despite being on top of a hill. No.
Yep, September.
September.
Yeah, top of a hill, no thing is an observer core bunker. I've been in one up somewhere in Shropshire. Where, yes, it's just I think with a telephone line to somewhere, and that was about it.
Well, you should get broadband. Well, for now, until it goes all fibre. Oh well. Yes. Have you seen the? Did you know much about the TV idents, Charles, back in your BBC days?
I sort of left that bit of the BBC in 1972, so I've rather forgotten what I knew before. But I remember Noddy being 9 position, a camera with 9 presets. I think clock was the basic one, and others were just slides that could be, cardboard captions that we put in, something like 9 inches across, that sort of thing, and
quite small,
quite decent size, not 35 mil slides.
No, indeed, yes, of course.
Yeah, but of course, Noddy, that was called Noddy because the camera nodded up and down. It had a friend in the next door cupboard called Big Ears,
Okay.
and he had 2 35 mil slide cartridges, which could be panned between the two.
Right.
Big Ears has 2 lots of 35 mil slides. Noddy has 9-inch cardboard captions.
And mechanical and physical objects.
Yes, real things. And then eventually, I think we got a BBC One ident built into onto memories into hard memory. That was quite a big beastie, as I remember, because we hadn't got really around to the miniaturization in the early 70s. It was still very much discrete components with the odd logic chips. Well, there were TTL chips, but that was what was sort of around. It was seeing a lovely prototype CFAX decoder, which BBC Research Department had made, and it was full of TTL chips. Unfortunately, the power supply went AWOL, and they all boiled.
Oh, I did. I attended Teletext 50. I think it was over at I was there when the BBC Breakfast were filming. Met Brian there to try and promote the London show, and yeah, they met the guy. They mentioned on the talk. It had to reset it many times a day. The early versions of it until it moved on to.
Oh yes, it was quite back last autumn. I went up to the Cambridge Computing Museum because it was Teletext birthday party.
Yeah, same as me. Day after.
And I ended up by sitting on a panel answering questions about it.
That's the thing. It's occupational hazard, I should think, given your background.
Well, if it hadn't been for me, the Teletext adapter wouldn't have worked because I discovered what they'd done wrong on the bench to make it not work.
Oh, brilliant! Well done.
Well, that was useful, but that was trouble. Was people were so worried about digits by then they forgot about straightforward ordinary signals.
Forgotten the basics and got caught up with the high tech aspects of it. No, I've got a soft spot for Teletext. There we go. Like I have a strange affinity towards these idents and things like that, but then it's an interesting visual concept. That's why I tried to create my own, basically. That's sort of cool. Vince has made a philosophical statement. Speaking of Noddy, why do elephants have big ears? Because Noddy wouldn't pay the ransom. I see.
I'm here all week.
Very good. So yeah, as I say, it's all different now. in terms of the accessibility for all this technology is very, very widely available. But it has both good and bad effects, I've found. As personally, I prefer these sort of slow YouTube videos of people doing electronics repairs, getting the oscilloscopes out, looking at the outputs of microchips and things like that. Slow things rather than the more popular sort of like things with a 5-second attention span. But yeah, these days it's accessible to everybody. It's just you think about what they used to be like with the massive, great heavy cameras and the quadrature videotape machines running at whatever, how many revolutions per second? It's ridiculous.
I can't remember the scale. I never worked on video recording. Forward speed was standard 15 inches per second, but the
air bearing.
Yes, but they had the helical scale. I never worked on videotape, so I never really discovered enough about it.
It was basically the original ones were about 2.5 inches thick, and they basically ran transverse, so you could multiply it.
2-inch tape, and it was held on the head with a vacuum pump.
Yes,
so that held it on the tape. Yes,
and it was running at like ridiculous because it's going 4 heads going directly 90 degrees initially, which made it possible. And the BBC did Vera back in the 50s, which was running at a horrendous high speed. But I think got favourable terms from the US with the RCA machines because they were competition potentially.
Well, it was Ampex was the people who produced the first
Ampex.
Yeah. RCA came quite a few years later.
Okay.
Ampex was the original.
I corrected. Can't remember.
AM Petrovsky Excellent, or that's what Ampex came from. And RCA came in probably 5 or 6 years later.
No, as I say, I just find it quite interesting, because it was so difficult to do. I like technical challenges. But yeah, I mean, probably just as well to stay away from that. I think they were quite temperamental and very loud. Quite more of an art than anything else to get them to work.
They even produced a mobile version, a Range Rover with 2 rear axles to take the load of the quad head video machine.
Wow!
So they actually had a mobile recording unit. It was quite a beast.
I bet it was. So I have seen these things running.
Take the load.
I can imagine it somewhat sort of tilted down at the end. It was very difficult, I say, back in those days. We take it all for granted now.
Well, it was innovation.
It was indeed.
Even transistors were innovation. When I started work, it was mostly valve equipment.
Yeah, valves are wonderful if you have them in sound systems. Lovely what they do to the sound.
We used them for video as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's everywhere, as you say, because that was the prevailing technology. But I would think with video would create some challenges because it's got lots of harmonic distortion.
You could create, yes, if you designed them, misdesigned it, you would get all sorts of things.
Yes, more susceptible to it. And now, little understood, hardly ever talked about, are volumetric displays. So you have a 3-dimensional display where you there are various ways of doing it, including plasma as well, which is a bit noisy, makes clicking noises, where you actually project the object into physical 3D space. So no glasses or headsets required. One of the devices, I think, runs a sweep with a device, and it then draws it in the space 3-dimensionally by strobing between the different objects. I think there's a starship, was it Star Wars, fighter type thing they've demonstrating. They cost tens of thousands of pounds. But it's interesting to think we're dealing with flat displays all the time for practical reasons. You want to project and see an object meaningfully and tell a story. So when I'm editing the videos, my very limited experience, it's all about timing on the frames. It's very difficult to get timings right and edits right. But I think at some point, volumetric displays might become more common. That'll be innovation. But I don't think 3D glasses, much as I love them, I like my 3D glasses, they're great, but they don't do great things to your head if you wear them too long, they don't work for everyone.
If you're wearing ordinary glasses anyway, they're not terribly easy to put on top, are they?
Well, I found it, if you get the cardboard ones, I will now demonstrate so I can look like a bit of an idiot, because I don't mind doing that. There you go. David Tennant in Doctor Who, is he? But I find that it's possible. It's very hard with a headset on, but they fit quite well. Well, that's quite frightening. they fit quite well. If they're just like simple cardboard ones like this,
I'm surprised you can't get sort of clip-on things for each side of normal glasses.
you probably can do. I hope.
Yeah, quite wouldn't surprise me.
I've got a plastic one that fits over the top, but Vince, that's a very sensible idea. If they don't do it, you should paint it and sell them. Mind you, it's definitely a niche thing. But as I say, weirdly, kind of a fashionable thing at the minute.
Or of course, you could write a 3D game which doesn't need those glasses by going for stereoscopic images. Where two images side by side, you either, depending on which type they are, you can either cross your eyes to see the 3D or relax your vision, like Magic Eye pictures.
Well, I could do that. I might find I have a lower success rate. You may be able to do it quite well. We did talk about doing
I'm probably the only person who'd be able to play it.
Yes, there you go. Magic Eye, I did do Magic Eye, and so I could make it so you have a Magic Eye image. Because again, if you have abstraction layer, you can change the projection layer to whatever you like.
Yeah, Magic Eye uses the same sort of principle, but you can do it so you create 3D images as well. So you have two images side by side.
Yes, of course you could. As you say,
years ago, there was a demonstration on television with one image, one above the other, and they told you how to make your own thing with a couple of prisms. So one eye straight and the other one thing, and that was gave you a 3D. It wasn't Tomorrow's World, but it was something quite similar.
That sounds like great fun. I'd love to do that. But I really do like stereoscopic imagery because it's a very nice effect. But as you say, 3D TV has quietly gone away. I'm not even sure there's that many 3D films around these days, but I could be wrong. Though I have attended a 4D film a while back. It was a very silly film called Moonfall. It was utterly ridiculous. But it was an interesting experience with my daughter in a 4D cinema. Where the seats shake and they throw water at you and various things. So yes, attempt to make people go to the cinema. But yeah, it's all good fun, really. And I think, well, Vince, what did you discuss on this meeting to 4 o'clock? Was it anything related to coding at all, or did it disappear?
No, that sort of disappeared by about 9ish.
I wondered. Do you remember what?
I mean, sometimes it depends on who's on and what they want to talk about. So the topic can vary, but you'll often get people discussing. You do get people asking, like, how do I do this? And somebody else will answer. Inevitably, it'll be Nemo talking about some of the stuff he's done, because he does do an awful lot of stuff for his version of RISC OS. But yeah, it sort of tapers off, sort of 9ish to 10ish, and then it's just whoever's left just generally chatting, just sort of socializing.
Pub talk, basically.
Yeah.
Complete with beer, probably. I'm quite.
Brian only drinks Coca-Cola.
Well, I drink tea mostly.